Okay, so he's talking about the environment, whether how much interaction the child has. Anyone else? What are some of the things that will facilitate the development of a brain?
The other thing is type of food.
The type of food, okay. The environment, as far as the social environment is concerned, the type of food. What else? How can food affect the brain development?
Well, I'll start by giving an example. When you go to hospitals where the infancy girl, the infancy young, it's whereby you're being told that a kid should, parents should make sure that they are providing the 6 groups of food to the kid so that their brain can grow better. And we find this as an evidence. Let's take kids from the villages whereby they just they are born after 6 months. They start eating sima in terere in the likes. I don't know how they call terere in English. So
how do you know terere when we don't know it?
Actually, I see that I heard about that.
Okra.
Yeah. So, and you find that another person, another kid is born in town, whereby he's able to be fed on cellulite and the likes. So find that particular person who is born eating better is the one gaining the brains are growing and they are developing better than the one the village is taking some insufficient food.
Okay. As far as Eric is concerned, that's what makes development, the brain develop. How about some of them? They're very quiet. Oh. What are some of it? Tabitha. What are... Tawonga, is this one? Yours? Huh? Oh, yes. I mean, Tandikwada, right? Yes. Communication. Okay, how can communication stimulate the brain development?
Okay, some kids, they are born in families whereby they are ashy. They don't see that this is a kid or who were their kids. So some of them will be like traumatized, and then they might be whereby other families, they show love and care to the little ones according to their age. And then when growing up, you grow up feeling that in a social environment.
Okay. No social anxieties. All right. Yeah. A young child's daily experiences, they are going to determine which brain connections develop and which will last for a lifetime, like I said. But at the same time, the amount of quality of care, but again, stimulation and interaction that these children receive in the early years makes all the difference. Interaction, stimulation, but again, the amount of quality care that these kids will receive, it is going to make all the difference. That's another point that I was expecting you to put down. Okay, let us look at how does care or caring the child help in the development that we are talking about. There is what is known as responsive relationships. responsive relationships. So you could be in a relationship that's not responsive. True, right? A relationship that's only one side. You are looking for something, you can't get it. You're trying to express your emotions, no one is paying attention. So care, as well as responsive relationships, is going to play a very important or a very vital part in as far as development is concerned. So how the child is going to relate with adults in their life are the most important influences of brain development. Here is a little child, or here is a kid. The way this kid is going to relate with the elderly ones around it, that is what is going to mostly affect brain development. So, loving relationships with responsiveness, dependable adults are essential to a child's healthy development. When the child is growing up, he should be able to be assured within itself to say, I am safe where I am. I've got adults around me. Whatever I need, I'm going to find it. If I am afraid, I'm going to run to A, B, C, D, and I'm going to be safe. Whatever I need, it is going to be provided to me. Or there are people that are going to be listening to me whenever I am explaining something. So we are saying, loving relationships with responsive, dependable adults, it is very essential in a child's healthy development. So a child is running up to you, Mommy, can you see this? You're busy on the phone. Mommy, can you please come in? This person is busy on the phone. They can't pay attention. So as the child is growing up, or as the child is calling out to an adult for a thing or two, for them this is genuine in this little brain of theirs. It's genuine. They really want someone to pay attention. So if the adult is going to be there, taking care of the nonsense and everything else that comes with this child, there is some development that is taking place in this child's brain. But at the same time, I would also say that ignoring this child is also going to help it develop. True or false? Here is a little thingy coming up to you with nonsense, sometimes with sense. So you are attending to it. So we are saying responsive relationships, they are crucial, but I am also saying ignoring them, not all the time, but sometimes, can also influence development. Is that true?
Because it makes that particular kid to actually learn faster on how to solve other simple problems.
Okay. He says the child is going to be in a position to learn to solve some other simple problems. What else? Who else has got a different idea?
If you ignore the child, you should stand and know if he's doing or she's doing something else right, and then you ignore it, you can realize really what I'm doing is not great. So thereby,
They will know that what I'm doing is not right, and therefore they'll get the hint out of it and then move on to the next stage. Anyone else? Dennis, who's Dennis? Dennis, say something. Yes, ignoring a child, can that help it develop? Alright, so if you decide to ignore the child, you should also be in a position to know at what stage the child is. It is possible to ignore a kid that's very small and your ignoring doesn't mean anything to them. It doesn't even send them to the development that we are looking for. But if you decide to ignore them as part of helping them develop, you should also look at the age at which you are doing that. Because there's an age whereby when you ignore them, they will know mommy is busy, or she doesn't want to talk to me, or maybe I'm being sassy or something. So they will move on and do something else. But then, if this is a very, very little child, they may not get the meaning out of it. So you may also do the opposite. Instead of helping it develop, you are damaging it. So, what we are saying is, these relationships, they begin at home with parents. They begin with parents in the home. It could be the family members, but also caregivers, teachers, as well as the community at large. All these people, they help in the bringing up of a child. Community, parents, caregivers, family members, teachers, they all collectively help in the development of the child. So from birth, young children save up invitations to engage with their parents and other caregivers. So when the child is born, they send invitations. I want to interact with you. How do they do that? They will cry. They will cry, they will make some noise. They are not crying, they want to interact with you. So you see them, they are lying on the bed, and then they are making these little noises. What is that? They are trying to send out an invitation to say, I want to play with you, I want to interact with you. So it's either you start touching the child, or if it's crying, you want to see what is wrong. So different stressors or different emotions within the child is going to come out differently. So they may cry, they may whine, they may coo, they may do all sorts of things to try to reach out to the parent. So the parent has to respond to such things. So this is a time now when the child is not making any noise. It's not making any sound, but they are simply acting and reacting. So babies do it by smiling, crying, cooing, as in C-O-O-I-N-G. Toddlers communicate their needs and interests more directly. So these ones are big enough. They can say, I want water, I want to sleep. So you find a baby that wants to sleep, it will simply cry and cry and cry. You're like, what is it? But then eventually you see it falls asleep. The nappy is where it is crying and crying. What is it? You try to do everything you can. By the time you remove the nappy, it's quiet. What is happening? That's an invitation to interaction, because they can't have their voices out. So as you are doing that, the brain is developing. When I want this, let me do this. It happens. When I want this, let me do this. It happens. Oftenly, and then eventually it stays within the child. Are we following the sequence? So the baby cries, it wants to be picked up. You don't pick it. It cries and cries itself to sleep, then nothing happens. The next thing, it is trying to interact, it is crying, you're not picking it. That part of the brain is not going to develop. But as you interact, the child or the baby, it is going to eventually know, this is what we do when we want to do this. This is what we do when we want to do this. And then it becomes a toddler, and then it's growing until the time when it starts lying. So when the child is lying, that's when you get to know that the brain is developing, right? Yeah, because now the child knows, if I'm going to say the truth, I'm going to be smart here. So what do? Let me come up with a lie, a beautiful lie, so that I get away with it. So sometimes parents, when the children start lying, if the parent is aware, it is a time to say, I think my child is now thinking properly, or the brain is developing properly. How are you knowing that? Through the lying of the child. But this is not a behavior that is supposed to be condoned. So in one way or the other, this behavior has to be stopped. But for now, we are happy to say, the brain is developing as far as lying is concerned. Is there any question so far? So, it is very important to make sure that little invitation, every invitation that is coming from the child, the caregiver has to be responsive to the child's needs. So, however invitation is coming, whoever is with the child, they should make sure that they should respond to that. So, this serve and return process, it is very important in the wiring of the brain. Serve and return process. It is important in the wiring of the brain. Reaching that far, I feel like if I would be mean enough to say, how can serve and return process, or how is serve and return process fundamental in the wiring of the brain? Will you be able to put that together?
No.
How is the serve and return process fundamental to the wiring of the brain? Here is a question. Would you be able to write something out of it? Why? I have been making noisy things about responding to invitations, the little invitations from the babies. So when we're talking about serving and returning, it is simply that responsive relationship. So my question is, if I remove the the serve and return and put, how can responsive relationships help in the wiring of the brain? Is that going to be possible? I'm waiting for a response. So the caregivers that are responding to their child's invitations, these ones are literally helping in the building up of the brain. That is why it is very important to sing, read, talk, and play with the child from the day they are born, to give them at least opportunities to explore their physical world, and at the same time provide a safe and stable environment. So here is a child that has just been born, day one. You're singing to them, you're talking to them, you're playing with them. You may think they are not hearing you, but there is an interaction that is taking place here. So we are saying these things are important in the wiring of the brain. Now my question is, if I am going to ask you a question that says, how can responsive relationships help in wiring the brain of the child or the brain of the baby? Will you be able to answer that? All right. You go back and find out. You never know, it might be part of the questions during your exams. So write it somewhere, find out a few points on it. Because you may meet it later in this life somewhere, somehow. All right. Sometimes it is